Our next media exploration is going to be using marker and color pencil. And so what I'm going to have you guys do is select brightly colored foods that you possibly have at home that you can arrange to create story or meaning. So you might have to just look around your house and see what kind of food you have, or you might even have to create some sort of shopping list. I'm giving you plenty of time to figure out what you want your subject matter to be. And I want you to get into the habit of taking your own reference images. So I do not want you just pulling imagery off online, so off the internet. And I want you to really focus on what can food communicate. So there's actually a tradition of still life drawing using food. It actually was very common in Holland during the Baroque period. And they did a series of these vignettas or these scenes that they called breakfast paintings. And so they kind of tell a story. So thinking about who could afford these objects, who could afford this food. And then if you think about the arrangement, you want to think about, why are things knocked over? Why are things partially left? Why is there no people around? So they really were thoughtful about how they organized it to create a story. So thinking about the story, what is communicated, the wealth of the people, maybe it's about consumption, maybe it's a climactic moment, like you don't know, maybe there was an intruder. It was also exotic. They didn't have a lot of fresh citrus in Holland in the 1600s. And so the fact that there's a lemon is kind of exotic. And then the lighting is very dramatic. So we're going to be using prismacolor markers and color pencils. And so we will watch and do the tutorials on this. But here's a video linked here. So you can see you'll use marker as a base, and then you'll be able to add detail and more value range with the color pencil on top. So some suggestions. Fruit is really great because it's naturally brightly colored. When you're thinking about fruit, you want to think about how you can make it active. Can you bite it? Can you slice it? Can you arrange it? Can you smash it? What are you going to do to communicate a story, as well as thinking about dramatic angles and composition? You could do some sweets, so things like pastries, you could stack them. You could do an image by itself, but make sure that you create some sort of setting. Notice that this cupcake isn't just floating in white space, in the center of the composition. It has a cast shadow. So what could be done to the cupcake to create meaning or story? Could you change the point of view? Could you change the quantity of cupcakes? How could you make it more active? What can be done to it? So like, should you peel the wrapper off? Should you take a bite out of it? What can you do to communicate more of a story rather than just what it looks like? So candy works really well. You could talk about gluttony or excess. Notice how that egg is like dripping down this burger. Keep in mind, all of these examples are in marker and color pencil. So what I'd like you to do is to think about what you want to communicate through that subject matter, and then you want to take a minimum of 10 photos again. So when you're taking your photos, keep in mind that you want to move past just making it a bowl of fruit or a plate of food, that you really want to communicate a story. So experiment with cropping, point of view, angle, lighting, and take many shots, right? Think about how you're going to communicate that story in each shot that you do, right? Make sure you develop your story, background, and your arrangement or composition. Right? What's the story? What's the story? Right? What's the story? This one's kind of funny. This was in class. This was a mango someone cut up, and then they want to make it look like they're spitting food out of their mouth. right? Think about how you want to use the space. It can be a close-up, right? Here, things are smashed, right? Things are rearranged. Got slices of limes instead of slices of bananas, right? You want to make sure that you are engaging the viewer and engaging and making the imagery active. Make sure you're composing carefully. You don't want to just stick things in the center. You don't want to have lots of dead space around it. You want to fill the page, right? And you want to make it look complete, right? So this one has no background, no cast shadows, and it really doesn't communicate much of a story. So make sure that you experiment while you're taking your photos, but also make sure you start with good imagery first. So come up with an idea of what you can tell a story about. Maybe favorite food or something that you find gross, you might feel really passionate about.